the winter.
Hello and welcome to this, the second in a series of podcasts from the Isle of Mull. My name's Alistair Satchell and I'll be your host for the podcast today. The aim of these podcasts is to share a little bit of information on the lives of some of the people who live here on the islands of Mull, Iona, Ulva and Gomatra. In this podcast, I talk to Morven Gibson, who lives in Bunessan in the Ross of Mull. As you'll hear, the Ross of Mull held a fascination for Morven and her family when she was wee, and they would make every opportunity they could to get here. Morven is one of the most inspiring people I know, and she's very, very humble about her achievements. So I'm delighted that she was able to join me to talk about her life and her work, empowering the communities of the Ross of Mull and Iona to take ownership over choices and developments in their communities. I first met Morven through Mull and Iona Community Trust when I was working as a local development officer for the Ulva Ferry area. In fact, I think she was sitting on the interview panel for the job. Mull and Iona Community Trust is usually referred to as MICT, and their work on the islands around here is really quite significant. The room we recorded in was very echoey, so please excuse any odd sounds you hear. They're simply my attempt to balance the sound of the room out in post-production. I'll be back at the end of the podcast with some more info and things that we talked about, and also a little bit more about the podcast itself. Once again, the podcast has been sponsored by The Island Bakery, a local company whose biscuits you can find in most fine delicatessens and shops, who you can visit on www.islandbakery.co.uk. I'm just going to take a moment or two to think about their chocolate gingers. Chocolate gingers. Also, I feel I should state for legal purposes that Sandy Brunton, despite what is said in the following podcast, does not smell funny. I repeat, Sandy Brunton does not smell funny. Or does he? Morven, over to you.
Well, my name's Morven. I live in Bunessan with my husband and my 3 children. I've got a 16-year-old, 14-year-old and 12-year-old. And they, the third one's actually just gone off to Oban High School, so just my husband, Michael and I in the house on their own through the week now.
That's amazing. How does that feel?
It's nice. We're doing a lot of practicing what to say to each other again, not having the kids about, and I do miss them terribly, but I'm delighted that they've all settled in really well and they enjoy their Oban High School experience and they enjoy the hostel, so it's good.
Because Michael would have done the hostel when he was younger.
He did, and he didn't enjoy it as much. It was back when the boys' hostel used to be at Kilbowie, and I think it was more. It was a harsher environment to live in, I think. But now there's a lovely environment at Glencruiton. There's about 50 island kids live there at the moment, Monday to Friday, and from the islands, Lismore, Colonsay, Tyree, and Mull. So, my eldest girl. She doesn't do quite as many clubs, she does a lot of socialising. My 14-year-old, she is really quite into athletics and she does a lot of rugby, which I love. I'm so proud of the fact that I've got a daughter that loves rugby and she's good at it and she's, enjoys the team environment, and I'm really proud of her. And my little boy's just gone and he's like a boy in a sweet shop. He just doesn't know what to be doing with himself next. So it's good, really good. They're happy, so that's the main thing.
Totally, yeah, I think that's it. And there's the new school in Oban now as well, as opposed to the kind of older one, which was fairly depressing as a building. I always thought it was like,
yeah, the new school is brighter. The corridors in the old one were very narrow and dark, weren't they, and quite low.
Yes,
it was oppressive. And the new school's bright and it's open, and has so much modern technology squeezed into the one building. So. And they've also just laid the new sports pitches as well, so that's a huge thing.
Yeah, totally. So your personal story is you're not native to Mull, are you?
No, I'm not. Basically, from the year I was born, my parents were camping at Ushkin every summer and every Easter, and we had all our family holidays were on Mull. We didn't go anywhere else, and we loved it. And we used to count the days down to come to Mull, do our 2-week camping holiday in October, in the summer, and then we would take a house in October and we'd take a house at Easter. And we made so many friends, and I feel as a child I had such a connection to this island and I totally loved it. And my dad used to joke with me that I should marry a mulach, and then they'd have a house just to come in and live in forever, and they could, just come up and down when they wanted. And so when I was 20, I was studying chemistry at Dundee University, and I decided that I wasn't actually going to go back. I'd met my future husband Michael 2 years before that, and had commuted back and forward a lot.
Yeah.
And then at the end of second year, I just thought to myself, right, I'm not going back, I'm going to stay in Mull. My dad will be delighted. My dad wasn't quite as delighted as I had hoped. Both my parents got over it, and they love Michael. Well, my dad passed away, but he was very fond of Michael, and both were really proud of the life that I managed to create for myself, which wasn't quite the life they had expected me to have.
I think that's one of the things. We life. You have an idea of what life is, and it really doesn't turn out like that at all. It's quite bizarre. Aye. So, where was home when you weren't on Mull?
It was a little village called Bell's Quarry, which is between West Calder and Livingston, and in the bigger picture, it's kind of almost halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Is it near Pumferston?
That was where I first grew up. Yeah. Did you know that?
No, comfy, pumpy.
I spent the first 8 years of my life in Pumferston, which was...
Sorry, there'll be people that live in Pumferston. What a lovely named place. Yes, yeah. It's a wee railway town, isn't it? Sort of.
No, it's a mining town.
Mining town, yeah.
Yeah, so all my family were miners, and so quite generations of my family lived and grew up in Pumferston, and were involved in mining. And then my mum and dad moved to Bell's Quarry when I was about 8, 9-ish, and I spent the rest of my time there before going to uni.
And what do your folks do? Were they dad involved in mining as well, as you say?
Well, he started off on an apprenticeship down the mines, and he then went and became an engineer. So that was at the time where people generally didn't go to uni, but if you were smart, you would get an apprenticeship and work your way up that way. So he did that, and my mum had a similar experience to me in that hers was worse. She didn't do much at school. Her parents despaired over her and she left. And then when I was 5, so my sister would have been 12, there was quite a big age gap between us, my mum decided she was going to Murray House and she was going to be a teacher. So she trained to be a teacher as a mature student with young kids. And and then she was a teacher for the bulk of my life. She enjoyed her teaching career.
And did she teach in East Lothian, West Lothian, sorry?
Yes, she primary teaching. So she taught in Deans, and she taught in Mid Calder and places like that.
Was she ever your teacher at all?
No, I'm glad about that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yeah. So, what did the idea of Mull mean to you? And it's not just Mull, actually, it's the Ross of Mull specifically, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
How did Tobermory seem to you when you were in the Ross? Because I remember my first experience of Mull was coming to stay here when I was about 13, and we stayed at Ardton, in the Ardton house with the McDougalls.
We've stayed in Ardton house before.
Aye! So
it was amazing.
It was really lovely, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that kind of big old house that you would think about, wasn't it?
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
My memories of it, I might have said this before, but my abiding memory of it is my grandmother from Colonsay, who I had to share a room with, having nightmares in Gaelic. And so I'd hear these screaming, what the hell is going on? So,
my grandmother memory of that house was that she was I wasn't sharing a room with her, but she had found it, because it was when the house became self-catering, because it was B&B for a while, and then it was self-catering, then it was B&B again. It was when it was self-catering, and she had found this old-fashioned, what are they called, those hot water bottles made out of clay?
Pigs, a piggy.
She decided she was going to fill this pig, so that would heat her bed up, except it leaked all over the bed, and so we had a good laugh at that.
We were down here and we went to Iona and I met Atty McKechnie on the ferry. I think it was McKechnie, his surname, Atty. He was one of those random encounters that had the most significant impact on me. There was meeting someone who was a real culture bearer, so a cultural champion. It was an extraordinary moment for me as I think it was about 13. It was really interesting to meet him. But it was Tobermory seemed so far away.
Yeah.
And so how did you feel about Mull and that when you were here?
Well, we used to get off the ferry and we just couldn't wait to get to Ushkin. That was just it for us. We got there, we loved Bunessan.
Yeah.
Finnefort not so much, but we loved it. Tobermory not so much. We used to, over the first few years, because I mean we literally were there every year, we would take a day trip up to Tobermory. But then that kind of phased out after a while. Just because we just got greedy for our time down here.
I can understand that.
We'd always go to Iona for a day, that didn't ever stop.
Macaroni cheese in the Martyrs Bay.
And then Finlay Ross used to have really good books when I was about kind of 10, 11, 12, so I'd bring a book to read and then I'd finish it and we'd go over to Finlay Ross and we'd replenish our reading stocks, and then so it would have raincoats, buckets and spades, random bits of jewellery.
The Rana novels by Christine Marion Fraser.
I read them when I was here, as a teenager.
She lived in outside of Dunoon, and my gran was a friend of hers, and I inherited her archive. So I've got a vast trove of her research, which is really cool. So Iona's dead exciting. It was something lovely, and there was
special going over on the ferry and just and playing in the nunnery.
Oh yeah.
Because and that was something that I did with my children.
Yeah.
It was we used to go over to Iona just to sit in the nunnery. I'd sit on a bench and they would run in and out the ruins, and it's really beautiful, the flowers, and quite a magical place actually, I think.
So you'd done chemistry, you'd 2 years of chemistry, and you decided to come to Mull. What did you do for a living when you got here?
Well, I was already working in the ferry shop, which was supposed to be a summer placement, so when I decided to leave I thought I'll just stay as long as Sandy will have me and then I'll find something else. Didn't know what I was going to do. Michael was fishing at that point, and we stayed in this tiny little caravan, which actually, looking back now, I think, good grief, how did we manage that? But actually I've got so many happy memories of the fun we used to have and our whole life at that time. So I worked in the ferry shop, and then when in the winter time, Sandy, obviously the hours decreased a bit, but they then found ways for me to sort of still make money. So I looked after their young child Doogie, and I looked after another wee girl Amy, and I did babysitting at night time, which to be fair I hated because that impacted on my social life, but I still did it. And after that I think I got a full-time job in the ferry shop and started to get more responsibility, and I got to do orders and stuff, which was all very exciting at the time. And then a job came up at the local primary school, and it was for an admin assistant, and I thought, I could give that a go. I don't think I'll get it, but I did get it. And by this point Michael and I had got married, and about 2 years after that I fell pregnant with our first child, Chloe. And then at that point I really wanted to be at home looking after the kids. I wanted to be able to spend that time at home, and I did that until my youngest was 3 before I went back to work. We had already bought our house by that point, which we were lucky. We bought it at a time where the housing prices were still quite reasonable, so it was kind of late 90s, and it was before everything kind of exploded and became unmanageable. And at that time, I don't know who it is, whether it's the government or the mortgage providers, had decided that share fishermen could get a mortgage, because there was a time where if you were a share fisherman, which means that you got a share of the catch but you didn't have any ownership of the boat or the actual asset, it was really difficult to get a mortgage. But they had changed the rules slightly, so within there's a short window before the housing boom and just after the rules changed for share fishermen, and we were able to scrape together to get a mortgage. And I was really glad we were able to do that at that point.
That's extraordinary. There are several stories of people with similar situations of just catching a mortgage with Northern Rock before they collapsed. Things like that. It's quite amazing. And so you were living in a caravan. Were you living in other things as well?
We were living in a very small caravan without running water, where we sort of paid rent to the house that the caravan was on the land of and got to go in and use their showers and stuff like that. And then we went into a bigger caravan which was up at Catchkin, and these caravans are kind of quite iconic for Finnefort because they've been there forever. Rented out by a local legend, Mary Mackay, and she let us have a winter let in one of hers.
Fantastic.
And then we moved into a house that had been built. The owners had built it with the condition that they would take someone off the council housing list for 5 years. So we were able to get there, and then we were able to buy our own house. So
how did that feel after that journey of moving from caravan to house to have your own place?
It was amazing, and at that point I really wanted to start a family, and my husband had said to me, not until we've got our own house. So I was hoping it would happen sooner rather than later, and it did. And again, it's just we never want to leave. We're still in that house, and
it's home.
It's probably not the fanciest house or the best, but it's home to us, and it's our home. It's going to be our home forever. Our kids will come back and visit us in it, and I hope we'll be there. It doesn't have stairs, so that's quite handy for the forever bit.
Aye, definitely. And that's another reality for folk here, is the moving thing constantly. Winter let is a word you would never hear elsewhere, but somewhere with a tourist economy, it's winter let. Oh, thank goodness! Amazing thing. So yeah, when we first met, you were working as a local development officer. What is a local development officer? What is the Immerstern, or the what was it called in English? The Initiative on the Edge or something like that. Was that what it was called?
Yeah, that's right.
What was this stuff?
So this is it became Growth at the Edge, and it was Highlands Islands Enterprise had sort of access funding from the government, and I think from Leader as well.
Yeah. Yes, from Leader, putting stamps on every blooming thing. Oh goodness, you had to have a tattoo on your heart. Yeah, exactly. I am owned by Leader.
So basically it was to invest in organisations so that they could employ a local development officer, and that person's first task would be to do a community plan for the area, which had to be it had to come from the community. That was really important, that basically it wasn't just another kind of thing that had no meaning. And so Mull and Iona Community Trust at that point got funding, and they had to, Mull and Iona was too big for the project. You wouldn't have been able to do one, local development officer covering the whole island. So they decided that the Ross of Mull and Iona would be the area that they would, put a local development officer in position. So at the time, my youngest was about 3 by this point, so I had gotten although I loved being at home with my kids, I was starting to get a bit stir crazy because I'd been at home for quite a long time. And I had done an HNC in accounting from home through Argyll College.
Right.
And then I kind of was going to I wanted to then do the HND in business admin, so this is just before the advert came out. And I'll tell you a funny story. I phoned Argyll College in Oban, but the person that was responsible for sort of replying to my call about wanting to apply to do the HND in business, for whatever reason, they didn't get back to me. I don't know if the call got missed or whatever, or at least they didn't get back to me right away. And I'm one of these people that when I get my mind set on something, I want to do it right now. Yeah. So I then had a look about the UHI website, and I saw this thing called Sustainable Development, and I thought, what's that? And then I read it and I thought that looks really interesting. It was economics and, like looking at policies for areas like this and how we make it better and how we, create development that's going to be sustainable, it's going to last, it's going to impact on people's lives. I thought that sounds really interesting. So I phoned the course leader. Now he was available, he answered the phone right away, and he said, we talked through it, and he said, you'd love this. Why are you thinking about doing business admin? That would be really boring. Come on, come over and do this. So I signed up that day. Meanwhile, the poor guy from the business admin place got back to me about 2 weeks later, but I had already started my first week of tutorials and stuff. But I loved it, and I think that course then enabled me to have the confidence to apply for the job, because I was already a year into it when this job came up. And I applied with no experience and no real qualifications really. I mean, I did well at school, but I had nothing after school. Half a chemistry degree, which actually wasn't even that impressive because the last half, most of the time was spent on Mull and not at lectures in Dundee, so you can imagine. And this 1 year of a sustainable development degree, and an HNC and accounts. So really nothing that they were going to be impressed by. But I went into the interview, my first ever real interview, with a panel of 4 people, and I shook my way through it. But I was so passionate about it because I really believed that this was something that could work.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was brimming with excitement and terror and everything. And then they came to see, they actually came to the house to tell me I'd got the job because they wanted to see my face when they told me. So, which we all kind of had a bubble and stuff, but it was really, really exciting for me. And I just think that it's changed the path of my life completely. And so I've loved doing the work. We got the community plan done.
Yeah. What was the experience of doing that like?
It was really good because I was actually getting to ask people what they really thought about living here, because it wasn't just like, do you want the village hall roof fixed, or do you want bingo on a Thursday night rather than a Tuesday? It was like, what matters. And I think what comes out most is that what matters is people. That's what matters. That's what came out right through the whole thing. I mean, there were lots of things that people wanted, and lots of sort of frameworks and stuff they wanted, but actually it was all to benefit people. And the things came up like, how do we get young people to be able to live here? How do we create employment? How do we invest in the place and the people to make life better? And that was probably the best experience doing it. It was tricky in places, but I really feel like it was something to be proud of, because I did do the consultation it was so in depth. I made sure that I spoke to as many people as I possibly could. And even just doing that was great, because I like being around people, and I like talking to them. So
you're enabling people to do things that they maybe don't have the courage to do it on their own, or to say.
Well, because an example is the Community Transport Association, which we set up. We got the vehicles, we set up the...
That was cool. Can you say a little bit about the vehicle, how you got the first vehicles?
So the first vehicle was, we saw an advert from Children in Need who were looking for a community group to take on the Ballamorey bus, which is quite iconic to Mull. I certainly remember my kids enjoyed Ballamorey when they were little. Me not so much, because it's always on loop. Anyway.
What's the story? Tell me, do.
So we basically put in for it and said, it's going to benefit the children, but also the old people and all across our whole community. And can we be the people that you give it to? And they did, and it was it was my first achievement and my first win. And then we went on to get funding for a smaller vehicle, but a brand new one this time, and we got that. And it was really good. And then we were able to say to the community transport group, like, you're doing it now, so we can take a step back and you can carry on. And they've really grown. They provide such an amazing service.
You see them wherever you go. Yeah, totally.
So that's something that I'm really proud of. And the whole thing's been great. But when we basically one day we got an email from the Forestry Commission saying that they were going to be selling off Chiroran Forest, and were we interested. So the directors and I all sat and thought, well, buying a forest isn't in the community plan, but getting more access to land is, creating more jobs for people is,
very much so.
And basically creating a more diverse environment, and looking at our kind of biodiversity and how we protect
economic stability as well,
and economic stability. It's a huge thing, and we just thought, oh, let's go for it. And that was the start of South West Mull Iona development.
Aye, until that point, the operations, you've been working with a local company, local charity, MICT, is that right? Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit about MICT and what their role was in all of this?
So their role was to employ the development officer in the first instance, and they said, rather than our directors looking after you, you should set up a steering group from people from the Ross and Iona, because it's really important that people are invested in what you're doing.
It's local democracy,
Yeah, and it was really good, because what MICT did was, through both James Hilda, the original manager, and Murray Finch, the new manager, they basically said to me, here's your space, you go and do what you want to do with it, and basically gave me wings, which is a bit of a cliche, but they really did. But they were there for me all the time if I needed it.
Particularly, as much as I admire James, it was before I had anything to do with him, but Murray couldn't do enough for anyone. He's extraordinary. And
it was like the first kind of, James was only there for the first maybe 8 months, and then it was Murray, and I've got the utmost respect for Murray. He still supports me, actually. If there's stuff I need, I can phone him and say, can you help me out? And also Sandy Brunton was chair of our group and chair of MICT.
Yeah.
So that was a really good kind of bridging sort of...
Sandy, who'd been your boss at the ferry shop as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And is actually now probably a really close friend. Well, he is a really close friend. And
even though he smells funny.
That's coming out.
No, that's staying in.
But Sandy was a really good support, and again still is. So I think that MIC's role was really to basically give us the confidence to go ahead and do something. When we were about to buy the forest, it seemed sensible to set up our own organisation because it was such a huge project, and we did it, and we still work closely with MICT. But I think they see us as one of their success stories as much as we're a success in our own right. So.
Damn right. Yeah. So. MICT you've worked with MICT, and what was that moment where was it your directors, or was it MICT directors went, well, the economics of this are so big that you probably need to go your own direction with it, or was it a moment of, did MICT say, actually we'd like to keep you on board for this, or was there a separation point? It was quite an amicable separation, wasn't it?
There's a very amicable separation. I think basically we had talked it through with various people that were supporting us at High in different places, and it seemed that it was the most sensible thing to do to move on our own. So we came to the decision by ourselves as a group. But Sandy was involved in that decision and as MICT chair, so it was very amicable. But we just decided we were going to break off, and I had mixed feelings at the time. I was really excited to be going off and doing, to start up this new organisation that was going to have potential to just create change. But at the same time, I felt safe being part of MICT and appreciated the support I had. So I think we've been lucky the way it's worked, because we all support each other. And
that's a different. And there's also the Woodland Company in the north as well. These community interest companies. There are a few on the island, but the main ones are yourselves, South West Mull Development Company, Mull and Iona Community Trust, North West Mull Woodland Community Woodland Company as well. So those are the three principal ones, but there are another couple as well. I think is Tobermory thing.
Tobermory Harbour Association,
who do significant work as well. Yeah.
And there's also Iona Renewables in Iona, so they're the new group that are looking after kind of renewable energy in Iona, so they're quite significant in terms of Iona, that's there. And also the Iona Village Hall Community Trust, which is another one.
They've done brilliant things. The Iona Music Festival is always something that I've never made it to, and I've always wanted to. The lineup is, I'd want to see that anywhere, and the fact it's on our doorstep is ridiculous. What were the priorities when you set up? The first thing is the forests.
Yes. So we set up the forest. We had the community plan as priorities and we had action points, but it was all about surrounding the kind of economics and employment and housing and stuff. When we bought the forest, that was our first big project, and we were able to. It was funny. It was a very long process. We were back and forth to the Forestry Commission. The asking price changed a few times.
That would have been stressful.
Yeah, so we got our, but it went down, not up, which is good. We got our Scottish Land Fund award. We had to negotiate a loan with Social Investment Scotland to make up the remaining 10%.
And what was it about Social Investment Scotland that were, rather than the Triodos Bank or the Green? Why did you go with them?
Social Investment Scotland are very good at taking risks on people. Now, not that our project was risky in terms of the actual. We have the timber growing.
It's there. It's an asset.
There's a market for it. Not that, but we were a community organisation that had no experience of trading, no bank, no trading accounts. And so. You are slightly risky, and also, so and it was our first move into forestry. So Social Investment Scotland, they are willing to say, right, we'll sort of give you money. We had to show that we had an asset that was going to make money and capability, but they are very good at supporting start-up social enterprises. their interest rates are slightly higher, but that's one of the things that you have to balance it, with the risk. Well, the first thing with the woodland was when we found out that we had finally owned it. I had been waiting for that moment for a long time, and it came, and I sat to write the letters to the email to the directors just to let them know, guess what, we own a woodland now. Before I sent it to the community saying, guess what, you own a woodland now. Exactly. But I actually felt quite, it was a bit of an anticlimax. It's strange, you wouldn't expect it, but I felt like it was like years of work, and all of a sudden we had it, and I thought, why haven't I really, I was excited, but it didn't actually happen quite quickly. 3 weeks.
Running naked through the trees, it's fine.
But 3 weeks later, I put a poster up in the shop advertising our 2 new posts that we had created as a result of owning the woodland, a forest officer post and an administrator post. And I think at that point, that was that was it for me. Yeah. That was the best moment. Imagine being able to give people a chance and a job and a chance to be able to carry on living here and do something they enjoy and all of that. Because I feel like that's the opportunity I've been given. Yeah, totally. And I've grabbed every opportunity that's been thrown at me. I've gone to everything, I've done everything, and I want other people to be able to do the same. I think my thing is, if you choose to live in a rural area like this, you don't have to settle here. You settle here, but you don't have to settle here. You don't have to settle for a job that you don't enjoy, or if you can be a bit creative and grab opportunities, you can have the best life ever. It's about what you want for yourself. And I think that's really important, that people kind of have the chance to be able to make the most of themselves and be the best they can be, I guess, if that's come out right.
That comes out perfectly. It's absolutely, fantastic.
But so the forest, what else? We had always planned to operate it commercially to generate an income. So we did that. We started felling quite quickly, and then our next load. So we've just been doing that, and we plan to replant this year, and we've got huge costs with fencing, and we had a lot of diseased larch and a closed road as well, which we've come through all of that in the last year, and it's been difficult. But we're still here, and we're moving forward now. We've put that behind us, and we're moving forward, and it's been interesting developing solutions to the problems. But I think the next big exciting thing is that we are going to be developing 6 Woodland Crofts in the forest, and my colleague Celia's going to be doing that, and it's really exciting. That's the big plan.
There's the chap, the Woodland Crofter as well.
Yes, he's
what's
helping.
His name again?
Jamie McIntyre.
He seemed excellent. I met him at the Community Land Scotland Conference. He was absolutely like, oh my gosh, what an amount of knowledge this guy has. He's worth following on Twitter as well. Is he just the Woodland Crofter? At the Woodland Crofter, I think, something like that. So you've got the Woodland concert, but your plans go beyond that as well. So what you've created 2 jobs within the Woodland, but you created other jobs as well. Well,
on Monday our new administrator started, because what happened was the administrator we had then Celia, she became a financial manager and a project officer, because she kind of developed beyond the admin role, and we needed somebody else helping with projects, and she does all the management accounts, so we suppose we promoted her. But then we thought, well, we still need somebody to do admin, and we were able to advertise for that job recently. Got 12 applications.
That's brilliant.
7 interviews, and we were able to appoint Saskia, who's just started. And again, I think that's just what does it for me, to be honest. I love that. We're also re-advertising for a forest, another forest officer. Our previous forest officer resigned at the end of the year. He's still on board as a volunteer, but he didn't want to be doing the job anymore, and so we're going to be re-advertising. So that'll be 4 members of staff, and we're also taking on a graduate through a ScotGrad placement over the next month. We're hoping to do that, so it'll be 5 members of staff. So it's really good.
That's brilliant.
It's great. It's really good. Got a lot happening, and
So we're sitting here in this big white building that for years had just kind of been here, sort of bits of it had been here, and was it called the Columbus Centre? Is it still called the Columbus Centre?
It still is, because we lease half the building. The community's ambition is to own it and to have something happening in it, but for the moment we decided to start the process off with a phased approach, and we are leasing it half the building. Historic Scotland still have problems with storing their stone that they have to preserve. Okay. So that's in the other half of the building, and we at the moment we've got. And
that's stone in relation to
St Columba, Iona.
Right.
Yeah, like stone that's basically been outside for thousands of years, but it needs to be inside now.
Obviously.
Yeah. Yes. But they do a lot of maintenance work over there and stuff in the winter, so it's good. Historic Environment Scotland do employ quite a lot of people down this way, which is good.
Totally, yeah.
So we have 2 office spaces for rent. One of them gets rented to Rural Housing Scotland. We've got this space which we had hoped to rent out. We don't have any takers at the moment, but we are going to be filling it with our own staff soon, so we're quite glad. So. And another room which is potentially going to be a feasibility period for a community-owned gym, a social enterprise.
So that'd be good for the winter as well. Yeah. What we do in the winter? We go to the gym.
Exactly. And probably quite an exciting thing is the South West Mull makers. They have rented the exhibition space and have had an amazing season. Yeah. They opened up in May, and people are coming in and buying paintings and bits of pottery and stuff. It's all made here, and it's beautiful artwork. Yeah, and they're a cooperative of 10 people who live here who are basically, we're trying to find a way to sell their stuff, and they can do that now.
That's fantastic. That is a problem of how do you sell your stuff with because the percentages of for sale are quite difficult for an artist. If they're not, it's so hard for an artist to charge what it actually costs to make something, and then you take 20% commission or 30% commission off the top of that. It's like, okay. Yeah. So to be part of a cooperative is phenomenal. And it's good. It's very good work as well. It's really, some other things. That's brilliant. So, is there anything? Can you say anything about what's happening over there? Is that all?
No, I can. We've are in the very early stages, of looking at a community buyout of Martyrs Bay Bar and Restaurant on Iona.
Which to me is phenomenal. What are the plans for that? Because that's such an iconic. The Martyrs Bay macaroni cheese was a big thing for me.
At the moment, we don't actually have plans at the moment. We've been approached by the owner, who is the family have worked long and hard at it for quite a few years, and they're at a point now where they need to say we need to take time out. And they've offered it to the community because if it doesn't sell, then they are possibly going to go for change of use, and that would mean that the community would lose their only pub. And also the sort of cafe facility really picks up a lot of the tourists because the hotels are amazing, but there are about 130,000 people cross over to Iona every year on the ferry. So if you imagine that number of people, you need places for them to go and eat and
go to the toilet,
and and have a drink. So it's a real community asset. We're in the stage where we just need to find out what the valuation looks like, and then we'll go to the community and ask them, do you want us to do it? That's a big question. If the community don't want us to do it, we won't do it. So
that's fantastic.
Really, that's where we are.
No, that's brilliant. It's not a dictatorial kind of we will do this thing, which is
we have to have support, and if we don't, then that's okay.
There'll be something else.
There'll be something else like seaweed, which is very exciting. So
Can you say more about seaweed?
So we're looking into doing a feasibility study. We're hoping to hear about if we've been awarded the funds to do it next week, and we are going to be looking at the potential for a community-owned seaweed farm. There's a huge demand for seaweed globally, and at the moment there's a lot of big companies who make seaweed products but are struggling to wild harvest and get enough to meet their demand. So a lot of people have been toying with the idea of seaweed harvesting as in farming, and it's something that we're really looking into because we think a community-owned operation, create employment, create a raw material which you could sell to the big companies, or you could add value to it and give
Make
local
your own gunpowder.
Exactly, exactly. Or even give local people the chance to add value to it themselves. You could sell the raw material to a local business startup that wants to make a nice food product or a face cream or Exactly. So there are all sorts of things that we could look at, but I think it's a really exciting thing. The thing with it at the moment is that the economics need to be worked out, and that's what the industry are saying. We don't know what the economics are, so we're going to do this wee study and see if it might work for us.
It's quite big in Ireland. I know there's certainly one place which is massively successful. But also it's a bit of an ethical minefield as well. I know there's things about kelp farming at the moment that...
I think it's the mechanical dredging aspect that might be the minefield, as in, sort of... the dredging of the wild seaweed, whereas this would be like growing a crop of potatoes in a field. You would have your area in the sea that would have lines, ropes, a bit like what the mussel farmers use. So you buy these seeded lines that are pre-seeded somewhere else, put them in the water, and the seaweed grows, and you pick it off, and then you do it again. So it's not destroying what's there already.
Fantastic.
And it's not sweeping up what's there already and then not giving it time to replenish your...
You're harvesting kind of in a logical, it's farming. Exactly. Your own journey as well within it is you've said you make the most of every opportunity you could. Can you tell us about some of the opportunities? We mentioned Rural Housing Scotland, who are one of my favourite organisations. I love what they do. I think they're the most and their staff, their choice of staffing. I mean, Derek Logie and the board are remarkable people. They are morally wonderful people. But you've got Jodie McLean was originally the first position of development officer. Was it development officer?
She was development officer, Jodie McLeod. Oh, she's right. No, you're right. She's McLean.
She's a wonderful.
I call her McLeod because she was McLeod when I knew when she was wee. Sorry.
But she worked with them to develop what they do, develop their offer, and then it's gone to a gentleman by the name of Cameron Anson. Who's an absolute rogue. Yeah, exactly. And they're just fantastic. But they have things that they do that support the work of local development officers and community development officers. Could you tell us a little bit about their work and also other opportunities you've made the most for yourself?
Yeah, so basically Cameron and Jodie have always been very supportive of us when we've been looking at... We haven't actually done any housing like Mull and Iona Community Trust, but we're looking at ways we can free up land, as in the Woodland Crofts. We're going to be going to pre-planning so that the crofters have all got pre-planning on site, which will be really helpful for them. So Cameron has helped recently, because when Jodie was in post we weren't quite at this stage, although we kept in touch and she was great. So Cameron's done a housing needs survey for us.
Fantastic.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it showed that there is a real need in the Ross of Mull and Iona for homes to rent and homes to buy and access to land. It's reflected what we knew already, but people like to see it written down. So that's been really, and we're going to be able to use this for a few projects, this survey. And they're excellent, and we've got like expert advice along the corridor, which is always good. So I find that's been good. I take advantage of every conference I go to, so whether it's Rural Housing Scotland one, or the Community Land Scotland one, or the Highlands Islands Enterprise Strengthen Communities one. They're all great chances to meet and talk to people, and you get so many opportunities just through talking to people and finding out what they do. And another one is that I got the opportunity to go to MIT in January this year, and I went there for 10 days.
Is that the Malik Institute of Technology?
Yeah, definitely.
That's down in the pier, isn't it? Yeah. Aye.
But yeah, I got to spend 10 days in Boston and it was absolutely amazing. So I was a bit worried about going because it was all with entrepreneurs, people that work in, I guess, private businesses, and I was going from a social enterprise point of view, and I thought, when I get there, nobody will know what I do, and I'll have to keep explaining it, and there was a wee bit of that. But only because I think, firstly, or mainly that Scotland are so far forward when it comes to social enterprise, community-owned assets, all of that, that the rest of the people from the rest of the world, I mean, there was people from all over, there was, Brazil, Australia, across Europe, and they just couldn't get, they were just really quite impressed by what we do and what we have and the opportunities. So that was quite nice. I thought that entrepreneurs were all really just focused on making money. What I learned was that there are entrepreneurs who have a real social drive, and I got to hear from Paul English, who was the guy who set up Kayak, the travel company, and another huge, he set up loads of big businesses, and he sells them on afterwards and stuff, but he spoke, and actually I must admit I had tears in my eyes when I listened to him. Gone from quite a difficult life at the start, and then going on to be a huge success, and still having like people in his team at the core of everything he does. And it really, I just thought, you know what, I can relate to you, because that's how I feel, so we're not that different. And I got to meet him afterwards, which was really nice. But it was an amazing opportunity, and what I learned was that throughout the whole thing we were learning about how to know your customer, for your product and what you're selling. You have to know your customer, you have to narrow it down, you have to this, and you got this 24 steps manual, which I actually still use for some of our new projects, because I thought, how will I use that? But you know what, I was thinking, who's my customer? But our customer really are the people that we serve in the community, the people that are people that have ownership of SMID. It's us. And I have to know every part of our community so that I know the best way that we can develop the opportunities and the potential to benefit. And so, I learned that we're not really that much different from all these other, and I think as well it's really important for organisations like ours to operate a really efficient business model.
Totally.
We have to become sustaining, because we can't keep investing money and doing all the good stuff if we don't have any.
No, you have to have, the economics is, it should be a really dull thing, but it's not. It's utterly amazing. I think also what Scotland does is tied into the future of what we do, is tied into the political situation or landscape we're going into, coming out of Europe, being independent or not being independent. Is very interesting, and one of our best on that, to my mind, is Lesley Riddoch as well. She's amazing. Have you had any dealings with Lesley at all?
I've met her once at the launch of our Blossom book in Anro,
and
I think that's when she was talking about the men's shed that you mentioned earlier on, because I knew I'd heard about it or read about it, so it's either in Blossom or she talked about it. I've definitely heard about it. The
idea is that opportunities that are positive can really bring great health benefits to communities, but when those opportunities are taken away through situations totally outside of the control of the core group, the effects they can have on that are massively negative. And
I love her kind of comparison with Scandinavia.
Scandonomics, absolutely. Yeah, she's got the McSmorgasboard, the book on that as well.
Cameron's lent that to me, but I haven't read it yet, but it's in my bag, but I need to have a look at it.
Obviously, as someone who's very interested in Scottish independence, I've tried to read around this a lot, like Gavin McCrone's book on Scottish independence, and there's another couple that are really, you kind of get an interesting perspective on economics and how it is this river that runs everything. You've got to be sustainable. If you're not, like the Common Wheel, their new stuff, Robin Calpin's stuff. He proposes quite a slow model of economics for Scotland for the future. There's two models. There's a really slow one, and there's a really fast track, boom, bang, wham thing that could maybe not have such sustainability, but that gets you to a peak. But the slow model, and this is what
it's trying to weigh up the pros and cons, isn't it? Of
totally, and this is where Alva find themselves as well as what's the economic model for the independent island of Alva going to be, which is really interesting.
It's so exciting though, isn't it? I wish I could be more. Well, obviously I'm out with the area and stuff, but I just love to be more involved in that. It's so exciting.
It's the most positive thing, and the people are just phenomenal. No, Alva is a model of positivity. That kind of ties me into kind of my last question, I guess, is what does community empowerment mean? What the latter part of your working life has been about community empowerment. Why is it important? What is it? Why, when you see what you've seen away in MIT or across in Boston, when you talked to people about it, what is it that makes community empowerment important?
I think it's just It's about people doing things for themselves and people feeling confident enough to do things for themselves and not being frightened of buying a huge asset, but being brave enough to do it. Because when you've got kind of people who live in an area being involved in the decision making and the choices that happen in the area, then your result is always going to be better because it's the people there that are making the choices. I think it's that, and just for me in terms of SMID, again, it's about this whole creating opportunities. It's giving people a chance to make life better, but if they're doing it for themselves because you're
doing it for themselves, but together.
But together, yeah, that's exactly it. Creating benefits together that will benefit individuals that live in the community, and I just think that's a huge thing. I think the empowerment that comes from owning assets and being involved in their development is something that can have far-reaching impacts, and the ripple effect, that's what we're talking about. It's that ripple effect. It's not just about owning the asset, it's about the impacts that happen as a result of that, and that's what community empowerment is. It's a huge big ripple effect.
Thank you again to Morven for our time there. I hope that her story will resonate with a lot of folk. Now, I'd like to thank all of you that have taken the time to listen to the previous podcast with Duncan. I've been delighted to hear from you on Facebook, Twitter and through the website. It's been just lovely to hear your thoughts and also your memories of the islands in times gone by. I'll try and incorporate them into episodes where I can. In many ways, what I'm trying to do is to create an archive for the future, to get a snapshot of life as it's happening at the moment on the islands. That's why in this podcast I've talked to Morven, and in the previous one to Duncan, who's many years her senior. I want to capture as many aspects of life around here as present themselves. I also love podcasts. I'm kind of late to the party, and for me it's a real revolution in entertainment. The intimacy of them is very special. Very often it's just the listener and the podcaster, and then their guests. It's really rather simple and beautiful. When you travel as much as so many of the folk from the islands do, listening to podcasts can really help make the day go better. Whether you're stuck in a ferry queue, travelling along the A85 or on the train with your Highland Person's Rail Pass, or even the Eurostar, listening to podcasts is usually a pleasure. You're able to customise your own radio station to your own tastes. I think it's brilliant. In the last podcast, I realised that when Duncan mentions Lonely Ben Moore, there's a piece of music that follows it, and it sounds like it may be the tune Lonely Ben Moore, just from the way it's structured. Sadly, it's not. That's just the podcast theme, which one friend lovingly described as sounding like a school orchestra. If you want to hear Lonely Ben Moore, you can find it in the notes on the webpage for episode 1. I recommend it. It's there's a couple of kids playing it on the accordions. It's rather beautiful. Thank you again to Island Bakery for sponsoring the podcast. I really appreciate it. Their sponsorship pays for the hosting of the podcast. As these podcasts take quite a lot of time to make, I'm also looking to fundraise through donations. So if you feel like it and are able to, please feel free to donate the cost of a cup of coffee wherever you may be through the website. You'll see a donate tab there where you can donate if you so wished. But don't worry if you can't or you don't want to. I'd much rather that you listened than not. In light of that, I'd like to thank Ian, Helen and Jamie for your donations. I appreciate it so much. Thank you most sincerely. As before, if anyone wants to reach out and say hello, you can visit the website on whatwedointhewinter.wordpress.com, and you can follow us on Facebook on What We Do in the Winter, and by Twitter on What We Do in the Winter, and you can reach us by email on whatwedointhewinter@gmail.com. So, thank you so much for listening in. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.